Welcome to The Point. We have another 27 minutes for you of something really exciting. We're talking about the human body. And today we're going to be talking about the human cell. We've got 100 trillion cells, and they're little factories. You're going to see in a moment. We're going to play a short 7-minute clip to show you what happens in each of your 100 trillion cells. Now, the guy who made this video is actually a very famous doctor. He's Professor Dean Kenyon, the Emeritus Professor of Biology at San Francisco State University, and he sees, you'll quite clearly see why, he believes in intelligent design. So let's take straight away 7 minutes and just look at this amazing video. And just remember, you've got 100 trillion cells, and this is what is happening in each one of your 100 trillion cells.
We have not the slightest chance of a chemical evolutionary origin for even the simplest of cells. So the concept of the intelligent design of life was immensely attractive to me and made a great deal of sense, as it very closely matched the multiple discoveries in molecular biology.
In the years since Kenyon's rejection of chemical evolution, science has revealed the details of an entire system of information processing that bears the hallmarks of intelligent design. With computer animation, we can enter the cell to view this remarkable system at work. After entering the heart of the cell, we see the tightly wound strands of DNA, storehouses for the instructions necessary to build every protein in an organism. In a process known as transcription, a molecular machine first unwinds a section of the DNA helix to expose the genetic instructions needed to assemble a specific protein molecule. Another machine then copies these instructions to form a molecule known as messenger RNA. When transcription is complete, the slender RNA strand carries the genetic information through the nuclear pore complex, the gatekeeper for traffic in and out of the cell nucleus. The messenger RNA strand is directed to a 2-part molecular factory called a ribosome. After attaching itself securely, the process of translation begins. Inside the ribosome, a molecular assembly line builds a specifically sequenced chain of amino acids. These amino acids are transported from other parts of the cell and then linked into chains often hundreds of units long. Their sequential arrangement determines the type of protein manufactured. When the chain is finished, it is moved from the ribosome to a barrel-shaped machine that helps fold it into the precise shape critical to its function. After the chain is folded into a protein, it is then released and shepherded by another molecular machine to the exact location where it is needed.
This is absolutely mind-boggling to perceive at this scale of size such a finely tuned apparatus, a device that bears the marks of intelligent design and manufacture. And we have the details of an immensely complex molecular realm of genetic information processing. And it's exactly this new realm of molecular genetics where we see the most compelling evidence of design on the Earth.
Well, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. Remember, this is an emeritus professor of biology who's been studying the human cell and other things related to biology all his life. He's obviously a highly intelligent man. He's concluded, I believe quite correctly, that there's a supreme intelligence behind all life, and the Bible calls him Jesus Christ. We're going to start right at the very beginning, and we're all made of atoms. I've got lots of pictures to show you, so I'm going to show you some quick pictures. Here's an atom. You've probably heard of the atom. Well, basically an atom is mostly actually space, but it's lots of little tiny subatomic particles called electrons, which are whizzing very fast around a central nucleus. Now, if we can move on to the next slide, the point about atoms is they're absolutely stuffed full of energy. You've heard of the nuclear bomb? Well, that's energy contained within an atom. You've heard of our sun, it's not the human sun, the sun, which is 93 million miles away. Well, that is an example of nuclear fission because the atom has a massive amount of energy in it. And in our bodies, we have a massive amount of energy. Now, there's one huge question mark. How does the actual atom stay as it is? I want to look, before we do anything else, just simply look at the design of an atom. Here we are, a central nucleus. And actually the nucleus is made up of a proton, which is positively charged, and then a neutral neutron with no charge, and then the electrons, which are negatively charged. So the point is that the center is made up of a proton which has a positive charge, and then with a proton, a neutron as well with no charge at all, but whizzing around it very, very fast are all these electrons. Right, we're going to move on to a little textbook on the next slide called Electromagnetism. And you'll probably be familiar with electromagnetism. It's the same as magnets. You probably know that a north and a south pole attract each other. Well, it's the same with magnetic forces. Positive forces and negative forces attract each other. So the big question is, how is it that these negatively charged electrons go whizzing very fast around a positively charged proton, nucleus, without imploding completely? Because they attract each other. And nobody knows why. Nobody knows why, but I'm going to give you what I believe is the truth. I don't know this is the truth. This is my personal belief, and it's from the Bible. It's because of Jesus Christ. This is what it says in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3. Here's the reflection of God's glory and the exact likeness of his being. Now listen to the next bit. And he holds everything together by his powerful word. Remember that Jesus is described as the Word. In the beginning was the Word. Now, I believe that the force holding the electrons, which are negatively charged, and the protons, which are positively charged, apart is the powerful Word of God, because there is no other explanation. They should all implode. In fact, in the future, there will be a time when that powerful force is withheld. And it happens when this universe, as we know it, burns up in fire. It's described in 2 Peter 3. It's in 1 Peter 3 verse 10, this is what it says, the heavens will disappear with a roar, the elements will be destroyed by fire, and the earth and everything done in it will be laid bare. So there will come a time when that force, the Word of God, is withdrawn, all the electrons and the neutrons will implode, and everything will disappear in what you and I would call an atomic bomb. I don't know if that's the truth, that's a theory. But it's a very interesting theory because nobody else knows why electrons and protons and neutrons stay separated as they do. However, all these atoms make up our cells, and remember we have 100 trillion of them, and all the cells individually make up molecules. The molecules make proteins, because we're made mostly of protein. And the scale of this thing is absolutely fantastic. The cells make tissues, which make organs, which make systems, and our whole body is made up of systems. Let me just give you some figures. That we make 300 billion new cells every day. We make 200 million cells per minute. Say that again. We make 200 million cells per minute. Well, how many cells do you think you have been actually made in your body since this program started? It's unbelievable, isn't it? This thing is absolutely massive, and what you have seen is that these are not, people talk about simple life forms. There is no such thing as a simple life form. The cell is the most complex thing you can possibly imagine. Now, I want to look just at some of the molecules that make up the cells. That is a molecule of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is very necessary for life because it carries oxygen. We all need oxygen. Well, that's how hemoglobin carries oxygen. I'm going to show you the actual formula, chemical formula for hemoglobin. The next slide. You don't have to remember that. All I want you to focus on is, I don't know if you can see it, but right in the middle is a little red mark, and it says Fe. That means iron. Right, now if you look at me, iron is really very important for life, because if we don't get enough iron, we get anemic. You've probably heard of iron deficiency anemia. It's a microcytic anemia. The details don't matter, but we all need iron. But, big but, iron is also very toxic. If you have too much iron, you're dead very quickly. In fact, in the last century, a lot of people died of iron poisoning because they used to cook in iron pots and the water was carried in iron pipes. Iron is a very dangerous substance, so our body has a lot of regulation to go on to make sure we have iron on board, not too little, not too much, just right. Let's move on now to another molecule, which you will have heard of. It's called DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. We've already done 2 programs on this. It's the most powerful genetic code in the universe. It is incredibly complicated. Let's look at what a molecule of DNA looks like. It is so complex, although we know what it looks like, we don't understand it. It is the most incredibly complicated genetic code in the universe. And every single cell of your body has 3 billion codes in it, with each DNA, with a DNA causing 3 billion separate codes, so that each heart cell becomes a heart cell, each lung cell becomes a heart cell. It doesn't happen by chance. It happens because God has designed us that way. I want to look now at what genes are. You've probably heard of genes. We've actually got a full complement of 20, let's get it right here. Let me read it out properly. We've got 23 chromosomes. Actually, there are 23 chromosomes from mum and 23 from dad. And there you are, they got them all together, so they make 23 pairs of chromosomes called genes. And you've probably heard of the human genome. What is the human genome? Well, it's the full complement of everything that is stored in our genetic codes about us. Our height, the colour of our eyes, how our cells become eye cells, lung cells and all the other cells. Everything about it is stored in our genetic code. And it's why we're all different. Just to make you laugh, here is a picture of Miss World 2011 in London, and one thing you'll notice of all the attractive ladies, they all look different. It's because they've all got a different genome, different structures. Now, I'm not going to tell you a great deal about the cell because simply I haven't got time. But there's a very important part of the cell in the periphery, which you saw in the video, called the ribosome. There's the ribosome in the periphery of the cell. And one of the things the ribosome does, a little factory, it makes the genetic code called messenger RNA into proteins. And the proteins are all very, very different. Now here's a stylized picture of a cell. I'm not going to spend a lot of time telling you about a cell. It's got a cell membrane, a nucleus, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, smooth and rough endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, lysomes, vacuoles, and cytoplasmic filling, and all sorts of other pieces beside. What I am going to show you is the end product of what these cells look like. And what I want you to notice is all how very different they are. For example, here's a brain cell. Brain cells, they store our memory, millions and millions and trillions of connections. All right? Here is a heart cell to keep our heart pumping 60 times a minute for 70 years. And very rarely does it go wrong. Next one is our liver cell. Our liver cells, they make blood and they process all our... It's basically the central factory of our body. I'll be doing a whole program about the liver. Here's our bone cells, and they're very, very strong. They're calcium. That's why they're all white, because they're mostly calcium. Do you notice how different they are? Here are blood cells. They're like little saucers, and they're carrying oxygen around because they're full of hemoglobin. Here is a human cell, a single human... Oh no, those are white cells, sorry. That's a white cell, and they're wonderful because they gobble up all the invading bacteria and pathogens and fungi and everything else. And if you wouldn't have white cells, you'd be very ill very quickly. But white cells are brilliant things. What's the next one? That's a human cell. And we did talk about how a human cell is fertilized, and after a few days, the next slide is a little baby, which is a fertilized egg, actually just implanted into the wall of the womb. That little baby has a very, very few cells in it. The next slide is that's a stomach cell, specially designed because it's got to live in a very, very high acid environment. The acid in your stomach is about the same acidity as car battery acid. Very, very acidic. The next cell is a lung cell. It's like a sponge to breathe, so that you can breathe air in and out. And the next cell is let me see what it is. I think it's coming up a muscle cell. That's right. It's a little dynamo, that is, and it contracts and relaxes all the time. And that's how you're sitting in a chair or standing if you happen to be standing. And here are, just finally, are the rods and cones of your retina, completely different again, because they're specially adapted to make light, photons in waveforms, into electrical stimuli to go to your brain. Now, what sort of organs do these cells make? Well, I'm just going to show you quickly. We'll spend a whole programs on each one of these, but here, for example, is a human heart. See what a human heart looks like? No, that's a human brain. That's a heart, okay? And then the next one is a human brain. Okay, I've made a mistake here somewhere. Right, that's a heart, okay? Sorry about that. And the next one is let's see what the next one is. Well, that's a heart up there. If we could have the next slide, see what that is. That's the intestines. We'll be spending a whole program on the intestines. And let's see what the next slide is, when we can get there. That's a skeleton. Well, the skeleton is like a big crane to hold you up, and it's amazingly, fantastically designed. I'm going to be spending at least a whole program talking about the human skeleton. So there we are. It's very, very carefully and intricately designed. Now, the Bible says in Psalm 14, verse 1, the fool says in his heart, there is no God. I think we've just missed a picture of a fool. But the fool says in his heart, there is no God. No, what the Bible actually says is in John chapter 1, right at the beginning, it says, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. So Jesus Christ was there at the very beginning, and he is the author of life. Now, these are a series of programs to help us to realize how just fantastically made we all are. We'd love to have some feedback, and some of you have been kind enough to send some feedback already. If you could send some feedback by email to info@revelationtv.com, we'd really appreciate that. If you're not able to do that, perhaps you could phone the office and speak to Susie and tell us any particular areas of the human body you would like us to cover. Right, in Psalm 139, this is what it says. For you did form my inward parts. You did knit me together in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I should jolly well think we are fearfully and wonderfully made. It's just mind-blowing. I've been studying this stuff for the last few weeks, and honestly, it gives you a headache. It's just unbelievably complicated. Unbelievably complicated. Happened by chance? No, it didn't happen by chance. It is totally, totally supernatural. Now remember that we're talking about something living, not something dead. Now, for something to be living, God has to give us life. He chose us before the foundation of the world, and he gave us life, and he formed our genetic code, our DNA. Now, it's important to realize that to be living, we have a human spirit living in us. It says here in the book of James chapter 2, verse 26, the body without the spirit is dead. You've got a human spirit, otherwise you'd be dead. When you die, your spirit will leave your body and will either be in heaven or hell, according to the scriptures. I very much hope everyone watching this program will end up in heaven, which is what Revelation TV is all about. I don't talk about hell very much. I do talk a lot about heaven. But what you need to know is that all living organisms radiate energy. And you may think, what's he talking about? I want to show you a picture of a butterfly. There's a butterfly giving off, guess what? Electromagnetic radiation, energy, because it's living. Okay? Here's another picture. It's a picture of a leaf. It's giving off energy, electromagnetic radiation. That's taken by Kirlian photography. People don't really understand Kirlian photography, but what you're actually looking at is electromagnetic radiation. So what we are looking at here is a supreme intelligence who designed the whole universe and our individual bodies. There, if you look out to outer space, you see the universe. It is just a picture of a supreme intelligence. A supreme intelligence. The intelligent design behind each of our 100 trillion cells is fantastic. I want to read you from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 28. Do you not know, have you not heard, the Lord is an eternal God, the creator of the whole earth. He doesn't get tired or weary. There is no limit to his wisdom. Everything is created using supreme wisdom. I'm going to give you a little foretaste of what's going to come on these programs. I want to show you the next program, the next picture. That is a picture of the energy cycle in every single one of our cells. It's called the Krebs cycle. Nobody understands it. I learnt it as a medical student. Trust me, nobody understands it. Here's another picture. This is a picture of what happens in your rods and your cones in your eyes, and how electrical stimuli light stimuli, photons moving in a waveform, are made into electrical energy, goes up your optic nerves to your visual cortex. The whole thing is just mind-blowing. These programs are all going to be on my website. It's called it's called freechristianteaching.org. Maybe a strap will come up, www.freechristianteaching.org. We'd love to hear from you. As I say, if you'd like to make any comment on these programs, do send us an email to info@revelationtv.com. What I'm trying to do is to give you an insight in just how amazingly designed our human bodies are. Don't look for a miracle. We are miracles. In fact, there are 100 trillion miraculous cells in each of our bodies. There is no simple life form. It doesn't exist. Everything is incredibly complicated, and is totally miraculous, designed by a creative God. We didn't come from the primordial slime. We didn't come from apes. No, you're created in the image of God. You are a miracle. Even I am a miracle. The whole of the universe is a miracle. We serve a miraculous God. We're His children. I hope you're enjoying these programs. We've got lots more to come. We've got just about the whole human body to cover, and the whole of zoology, the whole of botany. It's going to take a very long time. God bless you, and don't miss the next program. To the Point. Thanks for joining us. It's great to have you.